What is the feeling of being pushed into a pile of zombies by the closest and most trusted person? Hua Mi, who has been reborn, said that the top priority for survival in the afterlife is to have sufficient resources, stay away from crowds and white lotus flowers, and endure until the end. Rolling up his sleeves and preparing for a big fight, suddenly activating the supermarket space and cash register system. TSK, what else is there to strive for in life? You can win in the end by lying down. However, looking down at her growing belly, Hua Mi held the milk powder in her left hand and a machete in her right hand. Where did this child come from? The plan is a bit off. The first priority for survival is to have the baby born smoothly, and to be wary of the man who keeps an eye on her stomach all day. Man-wife, why do I feel like you're getting fatter and fatter lately? It looks like she's pregnant. Hua Mi. It's not like keywords of the novel. Pregnant mothers rely on unlimited resources to survive without pop-ups. Pregnant mothers rely on unlimited resources to survive. Download the complete text. Pregnant mothers rely on unlimited resources to survive. Latest chapter reading. Chapter 1. She was reborn. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 1. She was reborn. A burning pain in her thighs woke up Hua Mi on the big bed. She suddenly opened her eyes and saw a mess. What's going on? Isn't she pushed into the zombie pile by Fong Xian and torn to pieces by the zombies? What is this place now? It looks so familiar. Thinking of Fong Xian, Hua Mi just sneered. As an orphan, she used to treat Fong Xian as a true relative, but how did Fong Xian treat her? Not only did they snatch her boyfriend, but they also reached out and pushed Hua Mi when they were surrounded by zombies. So he pushed Hua Mi into the pile of zombies. After recalling for a while, Hua Mi sat up wrapped in a white blanket, and in the sky, she was reborn. She actually returned to the month before the end of the world, because of the day of heartbreak and hangover. Hua Mi's heart has been excited for a long time, and now there is still a month left until the end of the world. She can still prepare well for the arrival of the end of the world. Thinking of this, Hua Mi quickly turned her head to find her own phone. At this time, the internet can still be used, and everything is still in the electronic age. Hua Mi is thinking that she needs to sell everything she has at hand for money, so that she can buy more food. After all, the food we eat is too precious in the apocalypse. She quickly lifted the blanket and got up. As soon as her feet landed, she sat on the carpet in pain. I'll go. In her previous life, it was the same. After Hua Mi woke up, the man disappeared. I can't care where the man from the previous life went. Time is tight now, and there is only a month left until the end of the world. She must seize every minute and second to hoard goods. Not much money, time is tight, and there is no time for her to think. Hua Mi hurriedly got up, took a shower in the hotel bathroom, put on her clothes, and went out. While ordering her own winter clothes on her phone, she hurriedly found the phone number of the house agent on her phone. Hey, did you say someone has taken a liking to my ancestral home? Okay, I'll sell it on the condition of full payment. Hua Mi's home has a dilapidated ancestral home in the mountains, which is said to be built in the Yuan dynasty. It can be seen that it has a long history and no uncle in the family wants it, so it was given to Hua Mi's father. Then it fell into the hands of Hua Mi again. As a result, not long ago, a large expert evaluated that her ancestral home has precious historical significance, worth at least 1 billion yuan. The shabby ancestral home that nobody originally wanted has now become a coveted item, and more people are looking to buy it. As soon as the agent heard that Hua Mi wanted to sell the house, they enthusiastically agreed and began to handle the purchase and sale of the house for Hua Mi. They were quite pleased to say that the buyer was willing to pay a deposit of 1 million yuan to Hua Mi. Hua Mi naturally agreed. She hung up the phone and sorted out her credit card, Huabei, borrowing, IOUs, gold bars, and other credit limits. After raising 1.5 million yuan, Hua Mi dug up the WeChat account of the owner of the Lianhua Shengxing supermarket downstairs in the community and directly sent a voice call. "Hello boss, I remember your supermarket is going to be transferred. How much is it?" "Oh, 600,000 yuan, it's too expensive. You only need 500,000 yuan for a small supermarket." I transferred it. The reason why Hua Mi still remembers that this supermarket was going to be transferred after many years is because a month later, when a snowstorm hit and supplies were scarce, the supermarket was looted by hungry people. At that time, the supermarket owner tried his best to stop people, but was eventually dragged in the snow and walked around the residential buildings in the community. A red bloodstain, like a piece of red silk, makes Hua Mi, who is watching upstairs, unforgettable for life. This is the first time she has seen such a brutal murder scene, although she has encountered even more brutal scenes in her life since then. But this scene is still deeply imprinted in Hua Mi's mind, unable to be erased. Hurrying back to her residential area, she paid 600,000 yuan and signed the transfer contract. After that, she took the key to the rolling shutter from the owner of the small supermarket. Turning around, Hua Mi slammed down the rolling shutter in front of the former supermarket owner and began to wander around the narrow and crowded small supermarket. The reason why we decided to take down this small supermarket is because it is a small supermarket in a residential area. Although it has a small stock, it is comprehensive. She checked and found that the stock in the small supermarket almost covers all aspects of human life needs, including grains, oilseeds, meat and eggs, noodles, fruits, vegetables, clothing, feed, household appliances, hardware tools, and so on. These are not the most important. The most important thing is that Hua Mi needs to use this supermarket as a cover to hoard goods in large quantities. After inventorying the goods in the store, Hua Mi started calling the channel suppliers. Firstly, she needs 1,000 pieces of winter clothing. Because it is supplying to supermarkets, such a large quantity of demand has not made the channel suppliers doubt it at all. The other party still jokes about her. "You just took over Lianhua Shengxing supermarket and you need so many winter clothes. Did you receive any big orders?" Yes, a skiing club wants goods. Could you please deliver them now?" Hua Mi opened the online bank with a smile and paid for 1,000 pieces of winter clothes. Soon, an unprecedented heavy snow will cover the entire land of China. The arrival of the first snow disaster signifies the beginning of the apocalypse. People who originally thought they would survive this winter will completely bid farewell to their normal lives. So, it's important to buy winter clothes first. Before the weather becomes severe, a professional set of winter clothes is very cost-effective. After paying, Hua Mi plans to go to the farmer's market. The purpose of going to the farmer's market now is to buy seeds. She wants seeds. In the first few years of the apocalypse, apart from frequent natural disasters, animals and plants were actually relatively normal. That is to say, normal seeds sown in the soil will produce normal crops. If in the first few years of the apocalypse, Hua Mi could unleash her abilities to plant the land, and after the instant noodles were finished, she could still rely on the crops grown from these seeds to continue to survive. This also prevents her from competing with others in the early stages of the apocalypse for the sake of a single bite. You may not necessarily be able to snatch it even if you have a broken head and blood flow. As long as she can find a way to survive until her superpowers appear, she will keep up with her life and not worry about food and drink. And her ability is to give birth to plants. A small apple tree seed, in her hand, can be instantly nurtured by her to give birth to an apple tree. At the farmer's market, Hua Mi not only bought wheat and rice seeds, but also bought a large burlap bag of seeds such as citrus, loquat, strawberry, cherry, plum, pomegranate, chestnut, kiwi, yangmei, watermelon, cantaloupe, mulberry, tea, jute, and mat grass. And these things were dragged back to her small supermarket, along with the previous 1,000 pieces of winter clothes, which had already packed the small supermarket to capacity. End of this chapter. Chapter 2. Lianhua Shengxing Supermarket. You are listening at Novel Full. Audio. Chapter 2 Lianhua Shengxing Supermarket. Hua Mi looked at her small supermarket with a headache and began to take out her phone to find the warehouse. To be safe, she had to find a safe warehouse to store the materials in the supermarket within a month. As she was browsing the rental website, Hua Mi felt the ground shaking under her feet, and a surprised light flashed in her eyes. An earthquake. But in my previous life, there was no such earthquake. What happened? Before Hua Mi could figure it out, debris fell from the roof and she hid in the corner of the wall. In weightlessness, she was trapped in the ruins of the supermarket. Amidst the terrifying earth and mountain shaking, Hua Mi discovered a screen emerging in front of her amidst the chaos. Open the Doomsday Supermarket, your supermarket name. Lianhua Shengxing, activate the warehousing function. Lianhua Shengxing Supermarket Warehouse Level 1, Space 1, activate stock scanning. An A-level hidden danger has been discovered, and the supermarket is running out of stock, making it impossible to unlock Warehouse Level 2, Space 2 by 1. Start security scan. Discovered S-level hidden danger, insufficient defense of the supermarket, unable to open the black soil level 1 square meter, in the backyard of the supermarket. What is this? Hua Mi is a bit inexplicable. Isn't it an earthquake? When did this screen appear? In the narrow ruins, Hua Mi reached out to touch it, her white and slender hand passing through the screen in front of her, and she quickly withdrew her hand. Having lived in the apocalypse for several years, Hua Mi has seen many supernatural beings carrying various strange abilities, so she did not panic much about this strange phenomenon. She pondered repeatedly. So she has awakened her powers ahead of time now. And what awakens is still a different ability from the previous life. No, she had the ability to give birth to plants in her previous life, which was great. She was also waiting to stimulate her ability to give birth to various crops. How did she awaken the ability of the Doomsday Supermarket to her? After the earthquake passed, Hua Mi stood up in the messy small supermarket, propping up the clutter next to her. The reason why it appears chaotic is because during an earthquake, all the products on the supermarket shelves were shaken to the ground. But fortunately, the small supermarket that Hua Mi just opened did not collapse. A burst of ghostly cries and wolf howls echoed outside, as people who had been trapped in the ruins during the earthquake were screaming in pain. Hua Mi struggled to move in a messy supermarket, finally reaching the direction of the rolling gate. She tried to open the door, but the outside was blocked by rubble and couldn't open it at all. So she had to turn back and explore her supermarket, only to find an additional back door inside. She pushed open the door in front of her, and inside was a neat square-shaped white room. The room is empty, with nothing inside. What is this? Warehouse Level 1. Hua Mi remembered the prompt panel that had just appeared in front of her. This Level 1 warehouse was even larger than her Lotus Shengxing supermarket. Hua Mi suddenly became happy. She turned around and returned to the supermarket, moving all the messy goods to her Level 1 warehouse. She put a pile of rice, flour, grains, and oil, snacks, hardware, and daily necessities, and also brought in 1,000 pieces of winter clothes. They were placed separately in a pile, and all kinds of seeds cannot be forgotten. She was like a hamster, gradually moving everything from her small supermarket into a Level 1 warehouse amidst the ruins of the earthquake. By the time the last package of crispy noodles that fell on the ground was picked up, Lianhua Shengxing Supermarket had almost been cleaned up, with only a small amount of crispy noodles and water remaining on the shelves. The remaining shelves are already empty, while Hua Mi's Level 1 warehouse is not yet filled. When Hua Mi was busy tearing open the crispy noodles with sweat all over her head and eating them crunchily, the sound of moving stones outside the rolling shutter door rang out. It's the rescue team coming. She calculated the time, and at this time in her previous life, the world was relatively normal and the social functional departments were still operating. At such times, the rescue team would arrive in a timely manner. The stone outside the rolling shutter was removed, the door was opened, and a lifeguard with a flashlight shone into the supermarket and said strangely, The head here is surprisingly neat and tidy, nothing happened. There are also lights for illumination. Compared to other collapsed houses, this small supermarket is still intact, which is simply a miracle. A few rescue teams pushed the roller shutter up a bit, bent over and walked in. Just as they were about to shout for anyone alive, Hua Mi walked around from behind the shelf. Perhaps this supermarket was built with shock-absorbing measures. She explained why her supermarket did not collapse during the earthquake disaster. Hey, it scared me. A lifeguard jumped aside and looked at the flowers on the shelf. The scene seemed eerie. They have saved more than 10 hours of people in this ruins, and all the people they rescued were all miserable and sorrowful. They have never seen a survivor like Hua Mi, who is as calm as a cloud. Probably, it's really related to her not being injured and the fact that the earthquake prevention measures in this supermarket are quite good. Hua Mi walked inside the counter, took out a few bottles of mineral water, placed them on the counter, and smiled as she asked the lifeguards, "Thank you for your hard work. Let's drink some water." At this time, the rescue team was still very loving, unlike in the post-apocalyptic era, where all rescue teams were completely destroyed in the natural disasters at the beginning of the apocalypse. The rescue team established later has become similar in nature to mercenaries. That is to say, if you don't give money, you can't expect them to help save people. So Hua Mi still has a good impression of the current rescue team. A few lifeguards with dark faces, sweating profusely, and fully armed, pursed their dry and cracked lips with a simple and honest expression. Since the people in this supermarket are fine, they must hurry to save others. But I'm a bit thirsty. A lifeguard began to pay outside, but was stopped by Hua Mi. She stuffed mineral water into the lifeguard's hand. "No need to pay, I'll give you drinks." A few men were very embarrassed, afraid that Hua Mi would refuse, so they forcibly put down their money, grabbed mineral water, and hurriedly ran out of the supermarket. Hua Mi picked up the money on the counter and was about to chase after the lifeguards to return the money, but suddenly the semi-transparent panel appeared in front of her. Exciting. Cashier system, sales. X 3 bottles of mineral water, charge 10 yuan, profit 7 yuan. So, is there such a convenient way? So what is the use of the money received? Hua Mi found it very strange. After all, in the apocalypse, these paper and electronic bills were useless. Is this post-apocalyptic supermarket still creating a cash register system for her to open up and do business, or what? Just thinking of this, the semi-transparent panel in front of Hua Mi quickly pulled out a shopping mall, with many gray buildings on it that needed money to activate. End of this chapter. Chapter 3. Daring to love is a waste of effort. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 3. Daring to love is a waste of effort. Hua Mi reached out and clicked on one of the buildings, and immediately a small dialog box popped up. Activating a level 1 factory costs 10,000 yuan. So expensive. She thought that there were still hundreds of thousands of yuan lying on her bank account, so she wanted to rush in 10,000 yuan first and see what factory could be built. Result prompt. Non-supermarket profit source, does not meet the specifications. Do you have to sell the items in the supermarket to unlock this strange building? Hua Mi has a headache. The money in the apocalypse is all waste paper, who would still use it to buy things? At first, everyone used to grab supplies, but later on, they used mutated beasts and the crystal nuclei in the minds of zombies as circulating currency. Hua Mi didn't have time to think much, and soon her phone rang. Caller reminder. Fong Xin. This bitch. Hua Mi hung up Fong Xin's call directly. As a result, Fong Xin fought again, hitting multiple times in a row. Hua Mi impatiently picked it up, and before she could speak, she heard Fong Xin's artificial crying, "Sister, are you okay? I saw the news that your community collapsed in the earthquake due to the tofu residue project. I'm so worried, sister. Sister, Xiren and I have been calling you all along, but your phone can't get through. Are you okay? You're talking. Immediately after, a male voice rang out on the phone. Ami, are you okay? Ami, we are all worried about you. Listen to me, I really didn't have any other women behind your back. This statement reminded Hua Mi of memories from a long time ago. At this time in her previous life, Qin Ziren was her boyfriend. Occasionally, she discovered Qin Ziren's sexual records with other women. The records are quite frequent. So Hua Mi proposed to break up, went out to spend money to get drunk, and even spent a lot of money to find a man. At that time, she didn't know that Qin Ziren's infidelity was with Fang Xian, and she even confided in Fang Xian for over half a month. As a result, several years after the end of the world, she met a friend of Qin Ziren, who told her that Qin Ziren and Fang Xian had actually been together for a long time. After this, during a mission, Fang Xian pushed Hua Mi into the zombie tide. At this time, Qin Ziren is still in a period of refusing to accept a breakup. Hua Mi coldly said to the phone. We've already broken up, haven't we? Do you have any other women? I don't even have feelings for you anymore. Don't call me anymore, I'm very busy right now. After speaking, she hung up Fang Xian's phone and then blocked it. After a while, Hua Mi began browsing the shopping website on her phone. When she was in the ruins before, there was no network or communication signal. Now it should be gradually restoring the network, and Hua Mi is using her phone to browse and the internet speed is getting faster and faster. She called the supplier several more times and ordered 20,000 bottles of mineral water. The supplier smiled over there and asked, I heard that your community collapsed with a gentle earthquake. Are you using so much mineral water for disaster relief? No, I'm going to sell it. Hua Mi thought for a moment and said to the supplier. You see, we are in an inactive sector where we can all encounter earthquakes. What else will happen next? No one can say for sure. Maybe there will be more and more earthquakes, and the weather will become colder. So, we should stock up on more goods and sell them slowly. If we can't sell them, we can still use them. She tried to speak these words lightly, but they also served as a reminder. After all, today is just a collapsed house in such a community, and tomorrow is not necessarily the case. The other party's supplier hesitated and responded, not knowing if they believed Hua Mi's words or not. Following the usual supply process, an hour later, they got a large truck and brought 20,000 bottles of mineral water to Hua Mi. The community behind Hua Mi is all in ruins, and the rescue team has sealed off the entire collapsed community. All the people rescued have been sent to the nearby park as shelters. For a moment, in this vast expanse of ruins, except for the small supermarket in Hua Mi, there was surprisingly no one left. The roads are all rotten, the tall buildings have collapsed, and there are rubble and scattered furniture, scattered daily necessities everywhere. Trucks cannot drive directly to the entrance of Hua Mi's supermarket. So the supplier thoughtfully assigned a team of workers to Hua Mi and manually transported the 20,000 bottles of mineral water into the supermarket in the ruins. After the workers left, Hua Mi gradually moved the mineral water piled up in front of the supermarket entrance into the first-level warehouse. While moving, she wrote about this doomsday supermarket. Why did she used to read novels? When someone had a space, they would just wave their hand and the goods would automatically be stored in the space. She had to work hard to move them herself. As soon as the thought arose, the heavy box of mineral water in my hand disappeared. The transparent panel reappears, level 1 storage. Mineral water X52, Hua Mi. So she worked hard for more than 10 hours before, moving all the things in the supermarket into the first-level warehouse. Is it really a waste of effort? Hua Mi pounded her chest for a while, then continued to pick herself up and quickly put the mineral water piled up at the supermarket entrance into the level 1 warehouse. At this moment, the sky was already dim, and several men dressed in rescue team costumes walked over. One of the men pointed to Hua Mi's small supermarket. Captain, the supermarket I mentioned is right there. The leader nodded and led the lifeguards forward. Just as they were about to speak, Hua Mi turned back with a box of mineral water in her hand. At that moment, the rescue team leader was stunned when he saw Hua Mi's face. "It's the woman from last night." He squinted his eyes slightly, took off the helmet from his head, and stood in place, looking at Hua Mi with a smile on his face, saying, "What a coincidence." Hua Mi looked at the lifeguard captain inexplicably, feeling that he looked very familiar, but couldn't remember where he had seen him before. Probably someone who had a chance encounter in her previous life, because over time, she has forgotten in the ocean of memories. The man waited for a while, and after confirming that Hua Mi had no other reaction, his sword eyebrows furrowed slightly. He held his helmet in one arm and took 2 steps towards Hua Mi, asking, "Don't you remember me?" Hua Mi nodded very honestly, indeed not remembering. "So, what's going on now? Can you talk about something serious?" The handsome bronze face of the rescue team captain began to smell. He snorted and looked at the small pile of mineral water left by Hua Mi's side. "Let's buy some water to drink. The logistics supplies haven't been delivered yet, and our teammates are all thirsty. There are too many people buried under this community, and we have always purchased fast rescue team logistics. For some reason, this time we unexpectedly fell off the chain. So the mineral water that was supposed to be used to supply rescue teams and survivors was actually not supplied." End of this chapter. Chapter 4. Obtained a function for producing mineral water bottles. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 4. Obtained a function for producing mineral water bottles. The rescue team has no time to dwell on this issue. Apart from constantly apologizing, the logistics department is also unable to quickly transfer a large amount of mineral water. And there is actually a surviving supermarket in this community. The rescue team came over with a try-and-see mentality, and they decided to buy as much water as they could. "Okay, I'll give you a cheaper price." Hua Mi smiled upon hearing this. She put down the box of mineral water in her hand and walked back to the counter of the supermarket. She took out her computer and calculated it with a snap, then asked the captain of the rescue team who followed in, "How much water do you want to buy?" The captain of the rescue team, with sharp black eyes, stared deeply at the kiss mark on Hua Mi's neck, and his voice was not very happy. "I'll take as much as you have. I have 10,000 bottles of water." She stood at the counter calculating. Although there were over 20,000 bottles of mineral water in her first-level warehouse, she always kept 10,000 bottles for backup. After speaking, Hua Mi looked up at the captain of the rescue team and asked again, "Do you want everything?" The lifeguard standing behind the captain whispered, "Captain, we don't need that much anymore. The logistics department will purchase materials for us and they should be delivered soon. Then let the logistics come here to purchase. It's a matter of life and death, there's no time for them to continue wasting." The captain of the rescue team raised his chin towards Hua Mi, took out his phone, and said to Hua Mi, "Come on, add a WeChat account, I'll transfer the money to you and find the logistics reimbursement for the rescue team later." Hua Mi inexplicably took out her phone and added the captain's WeChat account. Upon seeing his WeChat profile picture, she saw a woman sleeping with her back to the camera. This woman's hair is of the same length as hers, revealing a little milky white at the back of her neck. On the exposed half of her back shoulder, there is a deep purple-red kiss mark. This person's WeChat profile picture doesn't match his own tough temperament. "My name is Gong Yi." The captain nodded at Hua Mi and asked, "What's your name?" "Flower searching." Hua Mi added WeChat and calculated a price for Gong Yi. Gong Yi had no objections and directly transferred 20,000 yuan to Hua Mi, then asked, "Can you put 10,000 bottles of water in your small supermarket? I have a supply channel that can be temporarily adjusted." After Hua Mi received the money transferred, the lifeguards who followed Gong Yi took away the small pile of mineral water piled up outside the supermarket. "This is only over 100 bottles, it's definitely not enough. They will come back to pick it up later." But Gong Yi did not leave with his teammates, he began to wander around the supermarket. Hua Mi let Gong Yi wander around in the supermarket. As he moved to the door of the first-level warehouse, Hua Mi's heart tightened. She looked up and was about to say that the door couldn't be opened when Gong Yi seemed to have never seen such a door in front of her, and her eyes swept by. He doesn't seem to be able to see the door of the first-level warehouse. But he still keenly noticed her abnormality and asked. What's wrong? It's nothing, I just wanted to ask, what have you been wandering around about? She felt strange that Gong Yi's subordinates had all left carrying mineral water, why didn't he go to work? Are there very few rescue missions? Gong Yi didn't answer the rhetorical question, is your supermarket newly opened? Why are the shelves so empty? Well, yes. Hua Mi tidied up the counter while casually responding to Gong Yi. After a while, seeing that he hadn't left yet, she said. Have you been busy with your rescue mission recently? If you have nothing to do, you can stock up more supplies at home and ask your logistics staff to buy more supplies. I think the weather is getting colder and colder. I'm afraid there will be a snowstorm this year. As she spoke, she didn't hear Gong Yi's tone. Hua Mi looked up. I saw Gong Yi leaning against an empty shelf, holding his arms and looking at her with deep black eyes. Hua Mi's heart inexplicably shrank, feeling like she was being targeted by a hunter. Just as she was about to ask, her phone and WeChat rang again. Or the video application sent by Fong Xian. Hua Mi pressed the button directly, and in no time, Fong Xian sent a series of text messages with a clattering sound. Fong Xian. Sister, did you sell your ancestral home? Fong Xian. Wow, sister, that's great. I heard it sold for a lot of money, is there 300,000 yuan? Fong Xian. Sister, you also know that I graduated recently and want to buy a house. I'm still a little short of money. Can you give me the money for selling my ancestral home and I'll pay the down payment for the house I'm interested in? Is that okay? Fong Xian. I know my sister loves me the most and loves you the most. Sister, I will come to get the money now and bring you some delicious food. Originally, Hua Mi was still thinking about blacklisting Fong Xian, but when she saw Fong Xian's text message, she couldn't help but sneer and type back. Hua Mi. Does my ancestral home have anything to do with you? Hua Mi. I've spent all the money. If you don't have the money, you'll be dead. As long as you have the ability to take it, you come and take it. With her hair still on, Hua Mi felt a hint of darkness above her head, as Gong Yi stood in front of her. He looks really tall, and his entire shadow can completely cover her up. Talking to your boyfriend who cheated on you. Gong Yi hugged his arms and asked, his black eyes still staring at Hua Mi for an instant. She shook her head, talking to a scumbag, eh? How do you know? My boyfriend cheated. Before Hua Mi could finish asking, Gong Yi turned around and left the supermarket. The communicator hanging around his waist rang. It seems that survivors have been found in the ruins again. Before leaving, he turned around and glanced at Hua Mi, don't look for men in the garbage dump in the future. Ah. Hua Mi didn't react, and Gong Yi's figure disappeared at the entrance of the supermarket. As he left, Hua Mi quickly called out the Doomsday Supermarket store and glanced at her supermarket's revenue, with a balance of 10,007 yuan. It's just enough to activate a level 1 factory. Hua Mi no longer hesitates and activates directly. She thought a factory would fall directly from the sky next to her supermarket, but there was none. This Lianhua Shengxing supermarket has not changed at all. Apart from the supermarket, Hua Mi searched around and opened the door of the first-level warehouse. As soon as she entered, she found an additional door in the first-level warehouse filled with materials. She quickly opened the door, inside which was a conveyor belt. There was a LCD panel on the door, which painted the products that Hua Mi can produce today. Level 1 Factory. Mineral water bottle, specification 550 milliliters, so she spent 10,000 yuan to get a function that can produce mineral water bottles. What is the use of this feature she wants? She doesn't have to pick up mineral water bottles to sell waste. Hua Mi couldn't conceal her disappointment, closed the small door of the first-level factory, returned to the supermarket, sat behind the counter, and continued to call the supplier. She ordered 10,000 packs of instant noodles. After all, in the environment of material scarcity in the post-apocalyptic world, people will turn into demons for a bite of stinky food. If she could have 10,000 yuan of instant noodles and take a bite at a critical moment, it would be enough to ensure her survival in the apocalypse for a long time. Let me talk about what I have done in the past 5 months of stopping work. Actually, I haven't done anything special, I just feel very unhappy every day. The older I get, the harder it seems to make me happy, but the reality of poverty is not enough to keep me sinking, so I can only climb back and continue writing. Thank you very much to my friends who came back on the first day of writing, love you all. May everything be a smooth journey year after year. At least seeing you, I am happy, really. End of this chapter. Chapter 5. Upgrade to Level 2 Warehousing. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 5 Upgrade to Level 2 Warehousing. Thinking of this, Hua Mi looked at the time and surprisingly caught up with Singles Day on 11/11. She quickly opened the shopping website again and found the cheapest bagged instant noodles, estimating that the average price was only 80.90 cents. The price is similar to that of the supplier. She immediately opened a money-saving card in paying, which was a few hundred yuan or more. She saved a few yuan, plus 11/11. After crossing 300 stores, she reduced 30 yuan. She spent half a day figuring it out. Finally, she saved 50 cents on the price of bagged instant noodles. She ordered 1,000 yuan of braised beef-flavored instant noodles online. They also ordered 1,000 yuan of pickled Chinese cabbage, pork bones and kelp, and soup with big bones. Not far from the supermarket where Hua Mi is located, a small earthquake recently passed and a factory that produces mineral water bottles collapsed. The people underground in the community have not been saved yet, and Gong Yi is leading the rescue team on the way to the factory to save people. Hua Mi waited in the supermarket all night, but the supplier didn't even deliver those 10,000 packs of instant noodles. She called again to ask, only to find out that there was another earthquake nearby, and the truck couldn't get close to the supermarket at all. It had to be parked far away. This time, the workers are unwilling to walk such a long distance to move. Hua Mi sighed and decided to pull down the supermarket door. She walked out of the ruins on her own and went to see what was going on outside. After coming out, it was discovered that the houses on several streets in this area had collapsed due to the earthquake, and everyone had been transferred by the rescue team to a nearby park. Hua Mi walked for over an hour before finally bringing the entire ruins to the end. Occasionally encountering a survivor on the road who was moving freely, they were all sighing, and the aftershocks were too severe. Someone is on the ruins of their own house, packing up what they can use and shouting loudly from time to time, "Our house has been shaken like this, the government must spend money to build a big villa for us." The other scattered people who were looking for their own belongings also nodded, constantly calculating the price of compensation in their minds. Hua Mi walked by without saying a word, just shaking her head in silence. This has just begun. Soon, government buildings will be buried in heavy snow. What compensation can we offer? Miss Hua. The driver of a truck in front waved hard at her. He was the truck driver who helped the supplier deliver instant noodles to Hua Mi. At this moment, his truck is stuck in the ruins, neither entering nor exiting. When Hua Mi ran over on the broken stones, the truck driver exclaimed, "Unlucky, the road ahead has also been damaged, and the road behind has also been damaged. It's really difficult for such a large truck to get out." Hua Mi picked up 2 boxes of instant noodles from the truck carriage and stuffed them directly into the driver's arms. "Thank you, master. This is for you to eat. Take it back and leave the truck here. I'll call you when the municipal clearance team comes and clears the road." As the saying goes, actually Hua Mi knows that this phone call will probably never be made again. She remembers that after the snow disaster in her previous life, it was an earthquake, first a small scale earthquake, and finally the collapse of an entire city. Not only her city X will be shattered by earthquakes, but other cities will also be the same. So if this truck gets stuck here, it will probably only be stuck here forever, and there will be no more way for this big truck to drive. The truck driver held 2 boxes of instant noodles and murmured for a while, then explained to Hua Mi, after the cleaning team clears the road, you can call me. Don't worry, don't worry. Hua Mi smiled and reminded the driver again, put away the instant noodles and don't give them to anyone else. Can save lives at critical moments. The truck driver didn't turn his head back, I don't know if he heard or not, so he left here holding 2 boxes of instant noodles. I even forgot to pull out the car key. Hua Mi shook her head, climbed onto the car bucket, and began to try to put the instant noodles from this car into her level 1 warehouse from a long distance. It's amazing. She appeared very happy and quickly put all 10,000 bags of instant noodles into level 1 storage. Jumping out of the car again and looking at this big truck. Wow, it's a pity that her level 1 warehouse is now packed to capacity, otherwise she could have included this truck in the level 1 warehouse as well. This inevitably reminded Hua Mi of the conditions for upgrading to level 2 warehouse. She couldn't upgrade to level 2 warehouse due to insufficient stock. This warehouse must be packed to the brim, leaving no blank space in the corner, in order to be considered fully stocked. Hua Mi immediately called the source supplier again, asking for 40,000 bottles of mineral water. In the noisy environment on the other end of the phone, the supplier shouted loudly, "No, I can't ship so many products here. We don't have mineral water bottles, so we can't produce bottled mineral water." At first glance, Hua Mi felt a bit regretful, but in an instant, she remembered that her end-of-world factory could produce mineral water bottles. I have a mineral water bottle, please wait a moment. Hanging up the phone, Hua Mi immediately called up her management panel. This is a newly discovered feature by Hua Mi, but she doesn't necessarily have to stay in the supermarket to use these magical features of the Doomsday Supermarket. For example, now, she is standing in the big car bucket and just pulled out her management panel. Flipping through the panel, I found the first level factory and directly clicked on Produce Mineral Water Bottle X4000. A green energy bar appeared on the icon of the first level factory, slowly decreasing bit by bit. Hua Mi took a look and didn't know what it was, so naturally she didn't care. After a while, her level 1 warehouse prompted her, level 1 warehouse. Add X1000 mineral water bottles, stock up meets conditions, upgrade to level 2 warehouse, space 2 by 1, it turns out that as long as her storage space is filled up, her storage will be upgraded. What are you waiting for? Kajiner's production of mineral water bottles and Kajiner's hoarding of materials will be good. Hua Mi was momentarily happy and gave instructions to the first level factory to produce the mineral water bottle X100000. Looking at the green energy bar on the head of the first level factory again, it continues to decrease, and after a while, a large section has already fallen off. Hua Mi still didn't care, just stood in the empty truck body. With a wave of her hand, the 1,000 empty mineral water bottles that were originally stored in the warehouse were neatly stacked in the corner. So she can not only store supplies from a long distance in the warehouse, but also retrieve them from a long distance. So Hua Mi took advantage of the fact that the first level factory was still producing mineral water bottles, and there was still 100 square meters of space in the second level warehouse. She decisively put the truck stuck in the ruins into the warehouse. Pick up a big truck for free, okay. Hua Mi walked out of the ruins on foot and waited for the first level factory to produce 40,000 empty mineral water bottles before calling the mineral water supplier. I have 40,000 empty mineral water bottles here. Please bring them to your water treatment plant and give me an address. Zhang Tui's new work on flower blossoms, end of this chapter. Chapter 6. Earthquakes again. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 6. Earthquakes again. The other party hesitated for a moment and said, "We are a legitimate water treatment plant. Is your water bottle qualified?" He looked down on this girl, thinking she was just a nobody in the Lotus Shengxing supermarket, but he didn't expect to bring him 40,000 mineral water bottles. But the production process of this mineral water is different from ordinary, pure water filling into a water bottle. Not only about water quality, but also cleanliness. If a wild chicken factory produces mineral water bottles from waste plastic, the water treatment plant dare not accept them. Qualification. Hua Mi hadn't noticed this yet. Just as she was about to search, she noticed a thick stack of mineral water bottle qualification certificates popping up on her control panel. How could the first-level factory of this post-apocalyptic supermarket not have qualifications? Yes, of course I do. It's certified by the United Nations. Hua Mi held the stack of qualification certificates that she didn't know were true or false, and smiled. "Don't worry, if there's any problem with the origin of the Aquarius, let me suffer the retribution of the end of the world." The other supplier agreed with great gratitude and provided an address to Hua Mi. She immediately took out a large truck from the warehouse, pulled a cart of empty mineral water bottles, and ran all the way to the mineral water plant. The supplier and the director of the mineral water plant are standing anxiously at the factory entrance, waiting for the mineral water bottle that Hua Mi is looking for. The supplier felt quite familiar with the large truck that Hua Mi was driving. But the mineral water plant is waiting to start construction and can't manage so much anymore. As soon as Hua Mi's truck came to a stop, the factory manager carefully checked the qualification certificate brought by Hua Mi and immediately greeted the robust young men in the factory, jumping onto the truck to move the bottles. The water-making machines are all ready. Made, and the supplier used a computer to calculate an account for Hua Mi. The money from this bottle was partially offset, with only a few cents per bottle of mineral water in total. The factory director said that if you can supply our mineral water plant with mineral water bottles for a long time, we will buy them from you for 30 cents each. The supplier said, wiping the sweat from his head while carefully watching Hua Mi. Afraid of Hua Mi's rejection, he smiled bitterly and said, "Now all the mineral water bottle factories in Shengxing have been destroyed by the earthquake. If we need to temporarily transfer bottles from other places, the cost is even more expensive than 30 cents per bottle. How about that? Can you help us?" Of course, there is not just one mineral water bottle manufacturing factory in the world, but there is only one large mineral water bottle factory nearby in Shengxing. I only heard the factory director explain. "We are a legitimate water treatment plant that produces tens of thousands of units of mineral water every day. Ordinary small factories simply cannot provide us with so many mineral water bottles." "Okay, then you can prioritize making 100,000 bottles of mineral water for me." Hua Mi appears very generous, not just a mineral water bottle. She has as many as she wants. The supplier and the factory director met and agreed without hesitation. 100,000 bottles of mineral water, it's a big deal wherever you put it. Both parties quickly drafted the contract, and they can send 10,000 bottles of mineral water to Hua Mi tonight. With the capacity of their water treatment plant, they can deliver all 40,000 bottles of mineral water tomorrow morning. Hua Mi paid the deposit and waited in the factory director's office, just in time to grab 10,000 bottles of mineral water and leave. During her break, her WeChat ringtone rang. Hua Mi thought it was Fang Xian asking her for money, but upon seeing it, it turned out to be Gong Yi, who had just added friends for a short time. "What's wrong?" Because the other party was a rescue team and had a bit of inexplicable familiarity, Hua Mi patiently answered Gong Yi's voice. Gong Yi frowned over the phone and asked, "Are you not in the store?" "No, do you want to buy water?" Hua Mi felt that Gong Yi had only one reason to find her. On the other end of the phone, Gong Yi fell silent for a moment. The meaning is, "Do you still have water to sell there?" Hua Mi is quite proud. "Yes, I have a lot of mineral water, enough for your rescue team to drink." "Then sell me another 20,000 bottles." Is there so much? Ha ha ha, it's only 20,000 bottles, 3 yuan per bottle. Do you have that much money? Gong Yi on the other end of the phone also laughed. At this time, after 2 consecutive earthquakes, the prices of mineral water in all supermarkets in Shengxing have increased. Not to mention a bottle of mineral water for 3 yuan, it costs 30 yuan per bottle, and Gong Yi also buys it. They have agreed on the delivery location, which is near the collapsed mineral water bottle factory where transportation is more convenient. At this point, the sky was already very dark, and the latest 10,000 bottles of mineral water produced on the assembly line were packed and transported onto Hua Mi's large truck. She agreed with Gong Yi to drag 10,000 bottles of mineral water to him first. The remaining 10,000 bottles of mineral water will be delivered tomorrow morning. Because the earthquake only occurred twice, only the community where Hua Mi was located and the water bottle factory collapsed. Therefore, Hua Mi drove a truck and dragged 10,000 bottles of mineral water to the location of the rescue team overnight. That was a large, temporarily built ambulance center, and Hua Mi didn't see Gong Yi. A young man from the rescue team received her. The young man said. The boss went to rescue, but an earthquake occurred outside the city. It's an earthquake again. Hua Mi nodded without saying anything, only letting the young man receive the 10,000 bottles of mineral water in the truck. This has really helped us a lot. The young man called in a few people, unloading the goods while looking at Hua Mi with a grateful expression on his face. You don't even know, our logistics have tried their best, but we can't buy mineral water. The only water plant in Shengxing says it doesn't have mineral water bottles, so we can't produce water. Our logistics have to go to the neighboring city to buy water, but it's said that we can't bring in the goods until the day after tomorrow. However, the survivors rescued in the past 2 days need water and cannot wait for a day. If there is not enough water supply, it will cause even greater problems. Hua Mi smiled comfortingly and said. It's okay, the water from the only water factory in Shengxing has been sold to me because only I have mineral water bottles in my hands, and your boss has sold 20,000 bottles of mineral water from me. Don't worry, you are enough to support logistics to purchase from the neighboring city. So many, the young man was a bit surprised. There are only over 3,000 survivors here. Do we need so much mineral water? Fact proves, we need it. And I really need it. Because the earthquakes that occur in the suburbs are not aftershocks, but rather from the first earthquake onwards, there will inevitably be more disasters one after another. Then, I'll settle the bill for you. The young man took out his phone and transferred 30,000 yuan to Hua Mi. Although he felt that he couldn't finish drinking so much mineral water, the boss instructed him to pay for Hua Mi. After receiving the money, Hua Mi patiently waited for the prompt from the Doomsday Supermarket cashier system, and she was in a hurry to use the money to upgrade the level 2 factory. The second level factory requires 20,000 yuan and can only use the money earned by Hua Mi. As a result, there were no prompts. Zhang Tui Nian Nian Shu's New Works, end of this chapter. Chapter 7. I just found my sister. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 7. I just found my sister Hua Mi. She didn't quite understand when she called up the control panel and looked at it again. Why is her cashier interface still only 7 yuan? After pondering for a long time, she couldn't figure it out when suddenly she heard someone calling her from behind. Hua Mi turned around and it turned out to be Fang Xian. At this time, Fang Xian appeared much younger and more beautiful than the one who relied on flowers to survive in the apocalypse. She was wearing a pink woolen coat with a rhinestone brooch pinned to the collar. Her long hair was permed into big waves, and she walked over with a happy expression on her face. Ah, sister, you're really worried about me. I knew I could definitely find you here. The survivors rescued from the collapsed communities and factories in Shengxing have been resettled here. These days, various people have come here either to find relatives or conduct interviews. So Fang Xian directly entered this medical rescue center. The expression on Hua Mi's face instantly became cold. What are you doing here? She didn't go to find Fang Xian, but Fang Xian actually came knocking on her door. Is this seeking death, or is it seeking death? Fang Xian didn't feel any danger approaching at all. She grabbed Hua Mi's hand with her freshly manicured hand and put on a pitiful expression. Sister, you hung up my phone last time. I couldn't get through to you all the time. Don't do that. We are good sisters, aren't we? How much did our ancestral home sell for? Sister, just tell me. Sister, what I told you last time was that I wanted to buy a house in Shengxing, so you can buy it for me. The tone was coquettish, as if as long as she put on such a posture, no matter how excessive her demands were, Hua Mi would agree. Hua Mi carefully looked at Fang Xian's expression. She is beautiful and delicate, and when she looks coquettish, she is the one that men love the most. However, Hua Mi saw an ugly expression on her body. Ha! Hua Mi couldn't help but laugh at herself. She didn't understand whether she was mentally disabled or blind in her previous life. Why can't you see the strong stench emanating from Fang Xian's soul? Looking at Fang Xian stunned, Hua Mi asked. What is our family's ancestral home? Your surname is Fang, my surname is Hua, and my Hua family's ancestral home is related to you for half a penny. Why do I have to spend money to buy a house for you? She's quite strange, really. What kind of logic is Fang Xian? Fang Xian also thinks that Hua Mi is quite strange. From childhood to adulthood, she ate Hua Mi's food, wore Hua Mi's clothing, and shared a large portion of the scholarship that Hua Mi received. Isn't that natural? Why can't Hua Mi buy a house for her after selling her ancestral home with the money she earned? Fang Xian pouted. Sister, I'm getting angry when you say that. How could you say such things? From childhood to adulthood, every time you say something like that. It's because I'm always so stupid that I've developed a lazy vampire like you. Over the years, how much money have you taken from me? Is it enough for a house? Tell me. Hua Mi interrupted Fang Xian's words directly. She shook Fang Xian's hand and looked left and right. Their argument had already attracted the attention of the garrison. Because there are thousands of survivors here, in order to maintain public security and stability, the station troops are responsible for maintaining order on site. Hua Mi didn't want to kill anyone at this critical moment of hoarding supplies, so she could only raise her eyebrows and look at Fang Xian. Get away a bit, don't let me see you again, otherwise next time, you won't be able to go back all at once. She always wants to repay everything that Fang Xian owes her, either with money or with a part of her body. However, Fang Xian did not feel the killing intent on Hua Mi's body. People living in a stable world find it difficult to have that wild intuition. She just cried and stepped forward, trying to hold Hua Mi's hand. Sister, don't do this, sister. Hua Mi turned around and left, leaving Fang Xian with a heartless back of her head. As Fang Xian was about to pursue her, Hua Mi suddenly turned around, pursed her pink lips, and pointed a slender and tender finger at Fang Xian. The meaning in that posture is full of a hunting smell. With the ability, Fang Xian dares to catch up with the previous step. With such a hunting posture, even if Fang Xian was slow, she could feel it. At this time, she had better hold back and not stimulate Hua Mi anymore. Otherwise, the outcome will be very unpleasant. So Fang Xian stomped her foot and stopped in place. After Hua Mi turned around and got on the truck, Fang Xian, who had stayed in place, suddenly turned into a ferocious tearful expression. She looked at the dusty truck with reluctance, took out her phone, and flipped over Qin Ziren's phone, her voice as sweet as possible. Ziren, I just found my sister, but she is so fierce and said she will never forgive you again. She may not want to see you now. And she doesn't know where she got a really big truck to drive from. It doesn't look like her. Did she make any bad friends outside? Brother Ziren, I'm so worried about my sister. Fang Xian hinted to Qin Ziren that Hua Mi had driven a large truck, which was usually driven by men. So Hua Mi may have met a wild man outside, she's not as good as Qin Ziren imagined. But Qin Ziren did not hear any hint from Fang Xian's words. He even completely ignored the fact that Hua Mi was driving a large truck. Qin Ziren remained silent for a long time on the other end of the phone before saying in great pain. Is she in the emergency center? I'm coming to find her now. After a pause, he seemed to have made up his mind. Fang Xian, thank you very much for your company during this period, but I think we should not continue in the future. He really likes Hua Mi, holding a genuine heart and wanting to wait to marry her. But he had been with Hua Mi for so long, and Hua Mi never let him touch her. At this moment, Fang Xian, who was somewhat similar to Hua Mi, approached him very proactively, frequently showing kindness to him, and sending him some kind of proactive invitation. Qin Ziren was also a strong-willed man who couldn't hold back for a moment. Then there was their first collision with each other. After that time, Qin Ziren regretted it very much, but Fang Xian said she didn't mind. She liked him and secretly fell in love with him for a long time. May I ask, which man in the world can resist such temptation? So there were the second, third, and countless collisions afterwards. Until his infidelity was discovered by Hua Mi. Now Hua Mi is breaking up with Qin Ziren. He certainly didn't want to, so he broke up with Fang Xian for the nth time. You also know, Fang Xian, you are Ami's sister. In fact, I have always only regarded you as my sister. After retirement, I work as a system for the male lead, by Air Qian be the little ancestor of the male lead. End of this chapter. Chapter 8. Some girls are so not self-loving. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 8. Some girls are so not self-loving. Upon hearing this, Fang Xian's face darkened even more. Sister. Why didn't he say he treated her like a sister when he had sex with her? She was moaning and crying in her mouth. Brother Ziren, I really like you so much. I don't care if we've been sneaking around, and I've never thought about ruining your relationship with my sister. Brother Ziren, please don't ignore me. Woo, it is obvious that her words are quite useful for men. Who doesn't want to be all about being a woman? It doesn't matter whether you like this woman or not, what's important is that this woman is willing to die for him. Fang Xian maximized the satisfaction of a man's vanity. Sure enough, Qin Ziren's heart softened once again. Let me explain to Ami first and then talk about our matter. The sound of Qin Ziren holding the car key came from the phone, and he was preparing to drive over to the ambulance center to find Hua Mi. At this moment, Hua Mi had already waited at the entrance of the water treatment plant at night. She quickly forgot about Fang Xian and Qin Ziren, the dog man and woman, and was lying in the driver's seat, carefully studying why she sold 10,000 bottles of mineral water, but there was no money in the doomsday supermarket. Cashier system. The headlights in the rearview mirror lit up, and several cars parked in an orderly manner behind Hua Mi's truck. Hua Mi lazily tilted her head and looked into the wide rearview mirror as several people walked out of those cars. From their conversation, it was learned that they were not a group, but came from various places in Shengxing to buy water. Because the mineral water near their house has risen to 30 yuan per bottle. A group of people walked past Hua Mi's large truck and arrived at the locked entrance of the water treatment plant. The security guard waved at them from the security room. It's time for work, we've already finished work. This group of people who came to buy water sighed and sighed. But soon, some found picnic mats, while others took out tents from their cars and prepared to wait overnight for the door to open. Someone shouted to the security guard of the water treatment plant. Grandpa, we'll just sit here and wait for you to open the door tomorrow. If we can't buy water, we won't go back. The security guard of the water treatment plant encountered this situation for the first time, quickly opened the window, propped his head out, and asked. Why do you have to buy water? We are a water treatment plant and we don't sell it separately. See. The security guard pointed to the large truck that Hua Mi was carrying. those who come to our factory to buy water are all driving large trucks like this. They can buy tens of thousands of bottles at once. How much can you buy? They are waiting at the entrance of our factory and won't hit the mark. He repeatedly emphasized that the water in the water treatment plant is not sold separately. The people who were preparing to wait all night for the water plant to open, murmured for a while, and then gathered around Hua Mi's car door. Someone knocked on the window of the blooming car and saw a little girl, stunned. Such a young and beautiful beauty, driving a truck. Is a driver's license an A license? Quickly, they couldn't care about thinking too much, and among them was a burly man with an anxious expression who started talking to Hua Mi. Sister, our community is right next to the collapsed community this time. It seems that our underground water pipes have been damaged by the earthquake, and we don't even have access to tap water. Sister, the security guard said that the water in their water plant is not sold separately. Do you have water here? Let's buy it from you. How about 5 yuan per bottle? Okay. Hua Mi's answer was very straightforward, 5 yuan per bottle. Is there anything else she cannot agree with? How many bottles do you need? The other party seemed to have never expected Hua Mi to agree so quickly, and the group of people outside the door fell silent for a moment. The burly man who was chatting with Hua Mi spoke up, well, it's not easy for you to come out and sell goods at such a young age. I'll buy 1,000 bottles. He is quite kind and doesn't think this disaster will last long. He just wanted to buy a few boxes of mineral water as a backup. But it's not easy to think about Hua Mi. Look at how dark this day is. Such a young girl is just enduring like this. What's wrong with letting the little girl earn a few thousand more yuan? Looking at the simple kindness in the man's eyes, Hua Mi couldn't help but laugh. She opened the car door and said to the sturdy man, "You have to believe that you won't regret today's choice." After speaking, she walked to the back of the car and, taking advantage of everyone's blind spots, took out 5,000 bottles of mineral water from her second-level storage. He said to the group of men who walked over again, "Clean up the money and goods, pay for moving the goods, give as much as you want, and move as much as you want." The man who said he wanted to buy 1,000 bottles of mineral water was the first to come forward and scan the code to make the payment. He carried several boxes of water onto his back seat. Because today he traveled across most of the city specifically to buy water, he specially drove a cart that could carry 1,000 bottles of mineral water. He was very busy, and the people behind him were queuing up to scan the code and buy water. Hua Mi was sitting in the back of the truck, stunned because her cash register system had entered current balance 5,007 yuan. So, this foolish cash register system requires Hua Mi to store the goods in the second-level warehouse once, and then take them out to sell before calculating the money for her. Otherwise, no matter how much water Hua Mi sells, the cash register system will not recognize this account. I'll buy 200 bottles. The second man stood outside the carriage and looked up and down at Hua Mi. It seems to be weighing why Hua Mi, such a beautiful girl, came to do this. Hua Mi glanced at the second man and stopped cursing the cashier system in her heart. She only collected money quickly and sold water. A group of men finished moving the water they had bought, and it was almost dawn. The man at the end of the line stood in front of Hua Mi. He turned around and saw that the parked car behind him had already walked almost, hand in the money. He spoke softly. Hua Mi was playing with consumer music on her phone, and because the other person's voice was too low, she didn't even lift her eyelids and asked, "What? Say it again." "I said, give me the money." The man in a leather coat, holding the car bucket with both hands, was about to pinch Hua Mi's ankle. Such a young and beautiful girl, driving such a big truck in this wilderness, doesn't seem to be able to ride. Shouldn't they give someone to sell? It's not impossible either. Some girls are so self-deprecating that they stop the driver on the road and get into the man's car. So it's possible that Hua Mi was taken to such a remote place by a truck driver like this. As for what the truck driver did, who cares? Anyway, the night was so long, I only saw Hua Mi selling water, and I never saw that truck driver come out. The man in the leather jacket also saw it, and Hua Mi sold a lot of water for 5 yuan per bottle. She earned at least tens of thousands. These money have made the man in leather change his mind. If he can steal Hua Mi's money, he can also steal the remaining water from Hua Mi's truck. Anyway, this place is off the beaten track. Gu Qingshu, who has walked out of the realm of contemplation, seems to be someone who wants to kill her and seize her treasure. Can others tolerate it? Can this be tolerated? Come on, go ahead. End of this chapter. Chapter 9. One game of elimination and entertainment is not finished yet. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 9. One game of elimination and entertainment is not finished yet. Hua Mi sat on a box of mineral water, but her eyes still didn't move away from Xiaoxiao and she kicked it out. Today she wore a pair of sneakers that are convenient for driving and walking. That kick hit the hand extended by the man in leather, pressing his finger against the iron railing of the car body. Ah! A scream sounded from the man in the leather jacket's mouth. It's particularly harsh in this morning. Hua Mi's eyes were fixed on the phone screen in her hand, her fingers pointing rapidly. A round of elimination fun is not over yet. The security guard heard the commotion and quickly ran out with an electric baton. Hua Mi's ears in the car bucket twitched, and she heard the footsteps of the security guard before releasing her feet on the leather-clad man's finger. You stinky bitch. The man in leather took back his hand, but didn't have time to look at his fingers. He burst out and was about to charge towards the car body. Coincidentally, the security guard had already run over and saw this scene. A big man with a fierce and ferocious face was pouncing on the young lady who was a major customer of their water treatment plant. That's okay, this is using security guards as police officers. Uncle Security can't bear it, Aunt can't bear it, just hit the man's back with an electric baton, get down. Do you think this is where you think with your lower body? You scumbag of a man. Back then, security guards were also trained. The man who was hit with an electric baton hugged his head and started fighting with the security guard. It turns out that even the security guards I have trained before seem a bit inadequate. Hua Mi finally put down her Xiaoxiao in her hand, jumped off the truck body, and pulled out an iron rod from the nearby ground. She picked it up casually, as if it was scrap from construction steel bars. Just as her eyes were fixed on the man in leather, the sturdy man who was originally the first to buy water drove back. He didn't hesitate either. He just heard the security guard constantly shouting, "You stinky thug," then jumped out of the car and ran to Hua Mi's face, asking, "Sister, what's going on? Is this man bullying you?" Hua Mi nodded without hesitation. The sturdy man turned around, swung his fist, and joined the security guard in beating the man in leather. Upon seeing this, the man in leather jumped onto the car and ran away under the pursuit of security guards and a strong and kind-hearted man. Hua Mi casually threw the iron rod she had picked up into the warehouse. I saw the security guard, filled with indignation, take out his phone and report to the police. While describing the leather-clad thug to the police, he also stood by Hua Mi's side, persuading her, "Don't be afraid, beautiful woman. The police will come soon and we will definitely catch that thug for you." Another muscular and kind-hearted man, who had gone back and forth, rolled up his sleeves and said, "Fortunately, I came back to buy water again. This beast dressed in clothes is nothing." In fact, Hua Mi was not afraid at all. She nodded seriously and sincerely thanked the security guard and the strong and kind-hearted man for their generous help. I really hope that such people, in the desperate survival environment of the apocalypse, can also be as honest and kind as they are today. She looked at the kind and sturdy man again. "Didn't you just buy 1,000 bottles of water? Why do you need water again?" Hu Jing looked embarrassed. "Hey, my wife wrote in the family group that I had bought so much water when I just drove back from my car." How could I know that every relative in our family group asked me to give them some water? Do you think this water is enough? Definitely not enough. Hua Mi shook her head. If earthquakes really keep coming, how can 1,000 bottles of water be enough? Moreover, when she saw this strong and kind-hearted man, her heart seemed particularly kind. She actually shared her water with her relatives, and then ran back to buy water. Hua Mi couldn't help but take a worried look at Hu Jing. After some thought, she still left him a supermarket address. I have enough water here for the time being. If you are short of water, you can come to this place to find me. Don't you have a phone or something? Hu Jing scratched his head. If Hua Mi could leave a phone number, it would be convenient for him to contact her. Hua Mi smiled. You'd better remember the address. Because she is not sure when the signal base station will collapse and the phone will lose signal if it continues to shake like this. So everyone needs to adapt in advance to the days without a phone. Hu Jing thought that Hua Mi didn't really want to have any deep contact with him, and surprisingly didn't even add a W letter. He didn't take it to heart. After all, the little girl was a bit more vigilant. So he bought 3,000 bottles of mineral water from Hua Mi in one go. With so much water in mind, even with so many family relatives, it's time for water prices to return to normal. As Hu Jing dragged the water away, Hua Mi waited with the security guard for the arrival of the police. But the police didn't come all morning. Until the newly made 30,000 bottles of mineral water were loaded onto the car, the police still couldn't find a trace. The security guard made a few phone calls to inquire about the reason, then frowned and looked at Hua Mi. Beauty, there has been another earthquake and the police have been pulled to maintain order. It is estimated that they may not be able to come to our place today. 3 more neighborhoods collapsed in Shengxing. The rescue teams of the entire Shengxing city were busy flying, and the local rescue teams were not enough. They even began to recruit survivors from the civilian population, and everyone worked hard to dig people in the collapsed ruins. The garrison outside the city, as well as the police inside the city, were mobilized to help rescue people. There was no one to handle such an attempted small case as Hua Mi. Chaos, chaos, the increasingly visible chaos has arisen. Hua Mi said expressionlessly to the security guard. I see that your water treatment plant is located in the Shengxing new area, which is relatively remote in terrain. During this period, you can bring all your family members over to live, and it is also closer to the water treatment plant. After speaking, she received a call from Gong Yi. Just now, Gong Yi was rescuing in the suburbs, but before he could save all the survivors in his self-built house, he suddenly felt the ground shaking. He immediately knew that it was starting to shake again, so he immediately called Hua Mi. The phone was connected, and Gong Yi's first sentence was, how much mineral water do you still have? The rescue team needs it all. Only Hua Mi has mineral water bottles in the entire Shengxing area, so the director of the water plant can only give priority to selling mineral water to Hua Mi. Gong Yi didn't know where Hua Mi came from and could provide so many mineral water bottles, but he had a strong sense of crisis, thinking that this natural or man-made disaster might not be able to stop for a while. So Gong Yi called Hua Mi directly without notifying her superior, and he wanted to buy all the water in her hand. Quite a lot. Hua Mi turned her head to look at the water treatment plant behind her. Now her truck was filled with 30,000 bottles of mineral water, but she had previously ordered an additional 100,000 bottles. Okay, you can take it to the ambulance center. I'll send someone to contact you. This time, Gong Yi didn't talk nonsense to Hua Mi and hung up the phone directly after finishing the main matter. He is very busy and doesn't have any leisure time to play romantic games with Hua Mi. When life is at stake now, his head is about to explode, and anyone who is responsible has no time for romantic relationships. I'm looking for a monthly pass, end of this chapter. Chapter 10. Also has the function of one-click instant return. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 10 also has the function of one-click instant return. Hua Mi looked at the beeping phone and thought that Gong Yi might be the chosen son in the legend of the end of the world. Most people who can survive and live well in the end of the world have a strong sense of crisis, which allows them to buy a lot of supplies when natural and man-made disasters just come. Finally, these supplies supported me and my body mutated, becoming a superpower. Hua Mi didn't waste any time and drove the truck to the temporary ambulance center. Although 3 communities were devastated and everything in Shengxing was in chaos, Hua Mi was lucky and did not encounter any roadblocks on the way, successfully reaching the ambulance center. There are twice as many survivors here as when they returned, and both inside and outside are bursts of ghost crying and wolf howling. When waiting for Gong Yi's people to come and negotiate, Hua Mi crawled into the car bucket and put the 30,000 bottles of mineral water that had just been loaded into the tank. Upgraded my warehouse to level 3, 3x1 space. Re-release. By waiting for the rescue team to come and buy the 30,000 bottles of mineral water from Hua Mi, it will be counted as Hua Mi's revenue. It was the lifeguard who received Hua Mi before. As soon as Hua Mi got off the truck, Chao Feng greeted her with a mournful expression. The boss had foresight and ordered 30,000 bottles of water directly from you. I thought I couldn't use them all, but now you see, there are so many survivors all at once. He pointed to a group of mournful survivors around him, each with a broken head and blood in a miserable state, all of whom had just been dug out of the ruins. And such survivors are still being continuously dug out and sent to emergency centers. Hua Mi was accustomed to such scenes. She delivered the goods, received her own revenue, and looked at the temporary medical center with a blank expression. So is just 30,000 bottles of mineral water enough? It's too naive. Water resources will become increasingly precious in the end. A bottle of mineral water is simply priceless. Watching Chao Feng leave, Hua Mi returned to the truck, counting a string of zeros in the cash register system, and flew happily. Immediately upgraded level 1 factory to level 2 factory. Level 2 factory. Mineral water bottles, specification 55 milliliters, mineral water bottles, specification 1.5 L, limited production. Self-suction filter type anti-particle respirator, specification. Children, X 10,000. She squinted at this second-level factory, spending 20,000 yuan in revenue to obtain a function to produce 1.5 L mineral water bottles. Hua Mi didn't know whether to cry or laugh. Okay, she's also very optimistic. At least she used to only be able to hold small bottles of water, but now she can drink with a big bottle. And it can also produce a limited quantity of 10,000 self-priming filter particle respirators. Even though they are for children's use, Hua Mi immediately clicked on the screen without hesitation and produced the 10,000 children's models of self-priming filter particle respirators. What surprised her was that the green bars above the factory icon, which had become full after the upgrade, gradually decreased when producing self-priming filter particle respirators. What the hell is this? Hua Mi couldn't figure it out and felt like a blood bar in a game. But aren't all the blood bars red? The blood bars of the second-level factory are green. If it's a blood bar, how should it be restored? This strange doomsday supermarket doesn't have a user manual or anything. Did she have to take a look first? She hesitated and drove around outside before sending 100,000 empty 550 milliliters mineral water bottles into several trips to the water treatment plant. After finishing all of this, Hua Mi had already collapsed in the driver's seat. At this point, she should go back to her own supermarket. After all, it has been several days since she came out, and she has not returned to her Lotus Shengxing supermarket for several days. It would be great if she could instantly return to her supermarket at this moment. She is really tired and doesn't want to run around. As soon as the idea arose, Hua Mi felt the surrounding scenery changing and she sat behind the cashier at Lianhua Shengxing supermarket. Originally, this supermarket also has a one-click instant return function. This has made Hua Mi extremely happy. Is it okay for her to go anywhere in the future? Isn't it just like any portal of a ding-dang cat? With this thought in mind, Hua Mi thought of immediately returning to the ambulance center and retrieving her truck into the level 3 warehouse. Unfortunately, she couldn't go back. What's going on? She wants her big truck. Hua Mi looked around her small supermarket, standing alone on a pile of ruins surrounded by miscellaneous things. This scene has obviously been searched by the rescue team, and there are no survivors underground. All survivors have been transferred to the temporary rescue center. But the urban clearance team did not come, and the reconstruction plan has not been put on the agenda now. So this place should continue to be abandoned like this. At this moment, Hua Mi received another phone call. Hello, I am the leader of Shengxing Post. Your nearest courier station has collapsed in the Shengxing earthquake. May I ask if your package should be returned or placed nearby? Strong and respected couriers, even at this moment, are still delivering their packages rain or shine. Hua Mi let out a sigh in her mouth. Don't go back, put it in the nearest location for me. Okay, then we'll put it at the nearest courier station to you. You can pick it up yourself or wait for the earthquake to pass, and our postal boss will deliver the goods to your doorstep again. Shengxing postal boss, our mission is sure to be achieved. Thank you very much, postal boss. Hanging up the phone, Hua Mi immediately went online and searched for the instant noodles she had bought during Singles Day. They had already been delivered to a courier station outside of Shengxing. From any perspective, she needs a large truck. Otherwise, transporting water bottles to the water treatment plant and going out of the city to pick up express delivery would be very troublesome. Hua Mi took a deep breath, dug out a pair of running shoes from her luggage, and put them on. She was preparing to hike through the ruins again to the temporary rescue center. A man walked over next to him. Hey, why are you here alone? A man with a backpack on his back looked at Hua Mi and looked at her up and down, speaking in an impolite tone. Hua Mi stopped in place, tilted her head, blinked a pair of fox eyes, with a hint of natural ignorance. How many people should be here? The man swallowed his saliva and glanced behind Hua Mi. Is there no one inside? I know this boss. I saw you come out from inside. Did you take what's inside? Undoubtedly, Hua Mi is the kind of girl who looks very charming. Her appearance leans towards a fox-like style, with a pure and contradictory charm. Anyone would have some thoughts about such a fox-like beauty appearing in such a wilderness. Ji Yu's book, end of this chapter.